Senate is back in session. There are a couple of key votes that have to happen that are, and frankly, I don't know where I stand on this. Let's just start, though, with government funding. There is a government shutdown that is looming October 1st. The big issue in terms of the government funding, in addition to the extra, 45 billion that the White House is asking for, and that number, it's 47 billion, 22 and a half for covering COVID-19 expenses that never made it into that Build Back Better bill or the infrastructure bill. Remember, this is going to be passed via reconciliation. This is a must-pass thing, I guess, to avoid government shutdown. There's going to be $4.5 billion to fight monkeypox. Almost $12 billion for Ukraine aid, including 7.2 for replenishment of U.S. weapons, and then 4.5 in direct budget support to the Ukrainian government, which I imagine also is going to go towards buying weapons. At one point, maybe we shouldn't be spending billions upon billions of dollars on weapons. That said, Russia now apparently is buying its weapons from North Korea. I mean, this is basically turning into a war of attrition that, we and the Europeans are funding.
Hillary basically got what she wanted.
Yep. This came up months ago. I mean, it must have been in January. In those early days, we did a clip of Hillary Clinton talking about, and I don't remember what it was, but she was basically saying, she was analogizing the Russian invasion of Ukraine with the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. And it is widely believed and maybe accepted that Afghanistan really put the final nail in the coffin of the Soviet Union, that it drained its resources so greatly that it started the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. And she said, I can't remember how she phrased it, so I just want to make it clear. This is a paraphrase. She was hoping or thought or imagined that this could be the same thing for essentially Russia as a great or mid-level power, that it would break Russia.
Or break Putin, I think she was trying to say, essentially, right? And it's just, that is a way to, what she's saying there is this could be a proxy battle between the United States and Russia, and we can draw this out for a long period of time as a way to weaken Putin.
Yep.
And the example that she gives with Afghanistan didn't turn out so well for either party in terms of who we funded and who rose to prominence because of our involvement in Afghanistan as a way to weaken Russia or the USSR. Right.
I mean, the flip side of that is also, it's clear, we trained the Taliban.
Yeah.
As part of an alliance with the Northern Alliance to fight the Russians and Russian occupation. And I think, personally, my sense is Biden was pretty reluctant to get this heavily involved, but I think Putin was so aggressive, and it looked like they were going to take the entire country. And remember, they started off by trying to surround Kyiv, and they just couldn't pull it off. That it drew the United States in. And certainly, there were obviously elements in this government. I mean, Hillary Clinton, representative of one, not in the government, but I'm sure representative of a lot of views that wanted to have this conflict. I suspect that Biden was not necessarily one of them, but got essentially overruled by the mass of the the sort of conventional wisdom in the State Department, and yeah, I'm sure on some level he was convinced too at one point, and Putin was incredibly aggressive. It's conceivable that he could have gotten in and just basically locked up and the Donbass, which ended up being sort of like his sort of retreating position, and now we're on to his third retreat position, and we'll see. But that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, that's my sense too, is like Biden was probably reluctant, but you would need to be like a stolid anti-war president in order to stand up to the type of forces that react to an invasion. Like
it's also very hard, I think, politically speaking, to be out there and having the president of Ukraine, regardless, look, Ukraine had a tremendous amount of corruption. It was why they were keeping, they were never even considered to be in NATO because of the level of corruption that was going on there. But it's very hard to have the president of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people and see these images and say, we're not going to do anything to help. But then the question becomes like, okay, well, if we're going to put $1 in, why wouldn't we put in billions?
Especially because there is a whole industry that seems to have been revitalized here domestically of weapons manufacturers by this conflict.
We're out of Afghanistan. We need a new proving ground.
Yep.
Same thing with the China hawkishness, by the way.
Nevertheless, 11 billion there.
Yeah.
Took a little detour. And there's about $6.5 billion for emergency relief. And then the rest is sort of other sundry items, including $2 billion to offset domestic energy increases as probably to shore up the strategic oil supply. So we've got the budget. And the big issue with the budget is going to be if in the House, Raul Gravalia has sent around a letter basically saying to the leadership of the House, do not include Joe Manchin's permitting rider to enter into the budget. Should not be passed through reconciliation.
That is definitely the right move. I mean, it might piss him off, right? Because that was the assurance that he got in order to pass the Inflation Reduction Act and make that agreement with Schumer. But sorry, it might feel like you have a little bit of a taste of your own medicine, dude. The fact that the Democratic caucus is not going to go ahead with your drilling plans just because you made a promise, because you broke a million promises over the past 2 years.
I think what everybody who signed that letter is saying, I wasn't part of that deal.
Okay. Right. Exactly.
I wasn't part of that deal. Yeah. I mean, if Chuck Schumer can vote for it, but I wasn't part of that deal.
Yep.
Any more than Joe Manchin was part of the deal that the White House made with splitting up the infrastructure bills.
Yep.
So that's that. But we shall see, because it really comes down to whether Nancy Pelosi decides to put it in to the funding thing, because it's much harder to vote and sink the budget. Because remember, there is a timeline here, and this is going to come into effect in this vote in the Senate. If the Democrats lose control of the Senate on November 8th, they have about 45 days to get as many judges through that they can, because then it is over. Done.
We're seeing this with the Trump investigation. This is paramount.
It is. And there's only so much time. And then there's only so much time between now and the election, because, of course, Schumer may want to call off the October session so that they can try and keep the Senate by sending their people back to their districts and their states to campaign. So the next question is, the question is going to be in the House, does Nancy Pelosi put the Joe Manchin thing into the budget? And there really needs to be a lot of pressure on her about this. She's already talking about it. It was floated. I know it was Maria Bartiromo reported this, so I don't know if it's true or not. But she's looking for an ambassadorship if the Republicans take over the House, and therefore
an ambassadorship to Italy, right? Just like a paid retirement.
It's Maria Bartiromo, so I don't know if I would buy that. But
either way, like I mean, if it's true, it's just like you can afford a house. You can afford a house in the south of Italy. Right?
Sounds on the nose.
Yeah,
but But the point is, there needs to be a lot of pressure on Nancy Pelosi here.
Because otherwise, then it's just the relationship between Schumer and Pelosi, and they're going to make a backdoor agreement, and they'll be fine. Like unless there's outside attention drawn to it.
Absolutely, and it really is a betrayal of environmental activists and activists broadly speaking to include that in the House bill. It's one thing to include it in the Senate, but in the House bill, because she wasn't party to those negotiations either. So then the next question is whether Schumer is going to allow for a vote on the House passed legislation about protecting marriage equality. Tammy Baldwin is the lead Democratic sponsor of the bill in the Senate. According to Politico, she's going to meet with Republican colleagues when the Senate returns, which would be today. The bill's backers think they have 10 Republican votes to break a filibuster. 3 Republicans have voted. Remember, this can't be done in reconciliation. 3 Republicans said they'll vote for it. Collins, Rob Portman of Ohio, who I believe his son is married to a man. That's when he had his big revelation. Tom Tillis of North Carolina. Lisa Murkowski. Tillis sees the writing on the wall, and Lisa Murkowski has spoken positively of it. Ron Johnson said that he would vote for it, and then he found out that he was a Republican senator up for re-election in Wisconsin, and has sort of like said, but there needs to be, some religious freedom first. But here's the issue. Schumer could force the vote before the election, and it would put Ron Johnson in particular in some very, very precarious positions. His is the most likely flip if the Democrats are to flip a seat. He is behind in the polls, though it's tough to measure. And this would alienate a significant chunk of his base.
And that's why I think you bring it up for a vote now. I understand.
Well, then that's one argument. The other side of it is that there is a fear that if you bring it up before the election, you lose Johnson. You may lose a couple other Republican senators who would want to give cover for Johnson, so that he's not they don't lose by 9, by 1 vote. In other words, they need 10 Republicans. You do, and so,
and then you beat them over the head with that electorally.
But you may not have another bite at this apple if you lose the Senate. And you're going to want to do judge 24/7 going forward.
But doing this makes it less likely to lose the Senate, because then you have stuff to run on.
It is a tough bet, because then you're opening up marriage equality to being attacked, by the Supreme Court, which...
They already said they're going to do that. I mean, for me, though, I just don't like playing prevent defense. You make these Republicans hold these votes. If you pass it, the Supreme Court can't do anything about it. It's a statute. Yeah. They can still say it's not there's no constitutional right to it, but it's now a federal statute. So I don't know. But if you kind of wait on this and you don't use it for your electoral advantage, you're not using all the arrows in your quiver electorally to maintain the Senate in the fall. And so then you have your use of arrow and quiver is swaying me a little bit, but and then you can have a second bite at the apple if you have the House. Right. Well, I was just saying that to get you on board even more so. The other Democrats wanted a cap on insulin prices
in the legislation they passed in August, and but that got cut out because of Joe Manchin. He wants to make that a bipartisan deal. Susan Collins has a bill with Senator Jean Shaheen, and they will see if they can pass a cap on insulin.
Which they had 7 votes for before, if I'm not mistaken, from the Republican side.
Yes, they may be able to get that because, like, honestly, like who like they can't find 10 Republicans who want to be able to take credit for capping insulin at $35. I mean, give me a break. So those are the big issues that we're facing in the Senate. We will be obviously talking about those as we go forward. And with that, we head into the fun half of the program,